senator of many of his relatives who live in my district. And so now you know I'm very, very old. I've served both generations. And I want to say not only am I in Baltimore City, in Prince George's County, not only are we proud of his accomplishments, but all of us are proud of his accomplishments. We're proud of the work that he's done. In the interest of time, I want to just be brief about a few remarks we've been talking about, and I looked at your mission, and it's noble, it's good, it's right, but there is something that's missing that is needed today by a group such as yourself, and that is involvement so that you can bring and make an impact on the political structure. Because everything that you've talked about since my arrival and all that I've heard you say, sir, began in the arena called politics. I served on the Judicial Proceedings Committee, and serving on that committee, I know the way laws are made. The judges that you've talked about are appointments that we make, that we confirm in the Senate, and that certainly with your participation and your being there to speak up as a voice, some of them may not have been appointed. So it makes all the difference in the world. Are you following me? Yes. So we talk about this new Maryland, and it's unique that you're talking tonight about this new Maryland, because we just left Annapolis talking about this new Maryland. That every 10 years when we go through this redistricting process, it is a process that we go through so that we can make sure that there are none who are left out there that we call the voiceless, without having some way of having their voices heard on the level where there is power, and where power and policy and legislation and resources are allocated to meet the needs of all persons. Now, some of my colleagues will disagree with what I'm about to say, but I'm going to say it anyway, because that is what this process was about. These days that we spent in Annapolis and ended today to come away with the redistricting process, again, was to make sure that all voices were heard. And I'm going to say, even contrary to some popular opinion, but I'm glad to see my two delegates from Prince George's County, who were among the only two in Prince George's County in the House of Delegates. And there was one senator who voted against the governor's redistricting plan, because that redistricting plan was wrong. That redistricting plan did not take into account the fact that African Americans, minorities in general, make up more than 45% of the population of Maryland. And instead of taking our numbers and creating those seats so that we could have voices relevant to our concerns, we took those numbers and we pretty much watered them down, put them into other areas so that we could elect for the good of the Democratic Party, so that we could elect a party person, and it wasn't one of us who was in line to be that party person. And so what we generally did as Democrats, and I'm a good Democrat, I'm a loyal Democrat, we picked up, as a result of this process, probably 7 seats. But what we did was to weaken the seats that we have, and then not give us an additional seat that we ought to have. And that's the political process, and something's wrong with that.
Amen.
Something is wrong with that. I am certain that this will be taken to court. It will be challenged. But part of the reason is because when we do not have persons who really ought to be holding us accountable from our own areas. And you talked about it earlier, and I said to them, I said, now look, if you're not going to give us, and you're not giving us anything, because we are 51 to 54% of the Democratic Party. 51 to 54%, meaning when you talk about redistricting, what you're talking about is policy, legislation, and resources flowing to meet the needs of people. It is not about racism. It is about culture. It is about social standing. It is about the fact that farmers in Western Maryland have very little to do in terms of their needs. Their needs are far from the needs of inner city places. And so when you take that and you lump them together, something is diluted. And I'm going to continue to say, whether they agree with me or not, that that was wrong. I was the only senator, Democratic senator, to vote against that. But you know what? When you know something is right, you got to stand up for it no matter what. You got to remember that this was not about the party. It's not about the party. It's about the people. Because without the people, you can't have a party.